Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today for using technology for authentic assessments in the elementary classroom. I know that is a mouthful, but hopefully we will be sharing a few simple ideas and projects that you could bring right to your classroom and ready for the fall, regardless of what situation that we are in. I want you to keep in mind at any point in time, if you have questions, need me to slow down, or you think I'm going a little too fast, feel free, leave comments in there. I'm happy to adjust accordingly. I always love hearing the feedback if you have specific questions, only because everyone in the room probably may have a similar question that you have. So this way we can all talk it through, you can share your experiences and see what we would like to use within here. So I will ask you at some points, we will be doing a little breakout room at one point, so please make sure you participate in that. Like I said, we all learn from each other, so it really helps out. All right, got a new friend. All right, welcome Gina. Hope you can hear me okay. So like I mentioned before, just simply put any questions that you may have in the chat and along the way. If you would like to unmute yourself at any point in time and chat, that is fine with me too. It's completely up to you and what you are comfortable with. Alrighty, so first and foremost, hello, my name is Allison Blackwell. I'm an instructional computing specialist at the Mohawk Regional Information Center. So basically I go out into districts and I help teachers integrate technology into the classroom. I absolutely love it. I love working with the kids. I love doing technology projects. It's so much fun. And finding so many ways for you to utilize technology on a daily, weekly basis, whatever your comfortability level is with it. So if you ever need anything after today, please feel free to contact me. I did put my email up here. I always try to answer as best as possible. If I don't respond right away, definitely send me another email and I will get back to you as soon as possible. I am also on Twitter, so if you ever want to see what I'm doing out in the districts that I work with, I try to tweet out updates as to what we are doing, some projects that are going on, some exciting news, how we're using possibly Google, anything of those lines in my districts. You can find that information there. So I want you to start thinking about to yourself, how do you currently assess your students? I know this spring that threw us through a loop, but normally in our current classroom environment, or not current, but in our typical classroom environment, how are you assessing your students? So what I'm going to do for this activity is I have a little agenda that I am sharing with you. I'm putting it in the chat. So if you can click on that agenda, this will open up into a new tab. You might have to jump back and forth, but find what's easy for you. But what I'd like for you to do is click on that first link. How do you assess your students? This will bring you to a Jamboard activity. So you'll see this activity right now up on my screen. And I'm just gonna highlight this to you. I absolutely love Jamboard. If you are a Google district and you are looking for a way to collaborate with your students, this is fun. It brings that interactive whiteboard-esque type of tool, but also you have the ability to add little stickies. You can add in images. There's even a cool laser pointer that our little kids love, just so you can explain things a little bit better. But it's a fun little tool to use. So you'll see here on my first slide, it says, how do you assess your students? What I'm going to ask you to do is we're gonna add a sticky note based on this. So you'll see here on the left-hand side, I do have our toolbar. So when you click here, you'll get a sticky note. What I'd like for you to do is put in what your assessment is. And of course, you're not gonna use my example. If you wanna play around with the colors, go right ahead. I love that for organizational purposes, but we're gonna hit save. And you'll notice it automatically comes up with another sticky. You can cancel out of that once you have yours. But once you add it, move it around however you see fit. You may want to add your name first and then put your response, okay? So once again, all you're going to do is open up the agenda that I put in our chat room, and you're gonna click on number 1, how do you assess your students? This will bring you to our Jamboard, and I'm gonna have you put up your information here just by adding the sticky. And if you notice when you hover over, it tells you, thank you, Stacy, for adding to that. So I'd love to see some other responses, and we'll move on. I'll give you some time. Yeah, we don't want to move my slide, but I like how you're using that. You could see how you can move around materials in here. And you'll notice they tend to overlap, so if you click and drag yours around, that will help you out. Awesome, exit tickets, great. Fluency sprints. Definitely, conversations. Very nice. You guys are doing a great job. Look at you. You're already using Jamboard. Super easy, right? Very easy to use. Reading and writing workshop notebook notes. Great. Warm-ups. These are all great ideas, and it's all things that we have to implement. And of course, I know many of us do have those basal series, and we need to utilize them on a daily basis and using their assessments on there. Completely understand that. Wonderful. Stacy, I love how you added collaborative projects. If you don't mind, I'd love for you to unmute yourself and at least share a little bit about that, if you don't mind. Oh, you're very choppy. Okay, if you would like to, because I know for me it's coming up very choppy, but if you would like to elaborate some more, I would love it. Either add another sticky and we can refer back to that later on. Thank you. So yes, there are quite a few ways that we can assess our students in the classroom. Definitely. Exit tickets are #1 thing. I love that for that quick, simple check, just to see what's going on. Now, what I'd like for you to think about is, what does authentic assessment mean to you? So when you hear the word authentic assessment, what does that exactly mean? So do me a favor, once again, we are going to add a sticky to this. So click on the sticky note and add in your response. So to get to this one, if you notice, up at the top, I have little what are called frames. So what I did was I used the arrows up at the top. So here's our first slide. I hit the right arrow to get to my second slide, and this allows for me to add more details. Yep, gathering data and information, meaningful assessment. Real world, definitely. Critical thinking. Yep, not a multiple choice test. Completely agree. You guys are on the right track. So just to show you, I love that you all shared your thoughts with me. Thank you very much for doing so. You could see how this is a wonderful way for your students to throw out ideas on here, to add information so that you could talk about it together collaboratively on here. But I want to show you in my Jamboard here, if I click on these three little dots and more actions, you can now download this as a PDF. So if you ever need this as a takeaway, you can do so. So if you need this for maybe for yourself, you want to keep this, you can. I will be sharing out all of this, that agenda you have, so all the links will be on there for today. So just keep that in mind. So you had some very common themes when it comes to authentic assessments. So I just want to highlight, a form of authentic assessment is basically a form of assessment in which students are asked to perform real world tasks. And that is one of those key important items that I saw some people post in there. So real world, making sure that they can make the connection that it is applicable outside of the classroom walls. So it's a real world task that demonstrate meaningful application of essential knowledge and skills. So they're using those skills and applying it out there. John Mueller, if you were to ever, I will share with you, his website has amazing templates and ideas for when it comes to authentic assessments. He basically put a class on here, or his students that were part of his class, all of the lessons that they created are part of this. So you will have access to that. Do you need to have something special on a computer to use Jamboard? No, you should be able to use Jamboard. Here's the thing. Jamboard is part of your G Suite of tools. So Kristen, we have that enabled at Mount Markham, so you should be able to access that. I'm wondering if maybe you're logged into a different Google account. That's okay for right now. But we can work on that later as to what's going on with that. But it should automatically get you there once you click on that link. Also, make sure you're using Google Chrome. That's a big deal too. It does work properly in Google Chrome when you're accessing it. Okay, so when we're thinking about authentic assessments and how we want to create this, we really need to start with 3 items. One, think about that real world application. What does that look like, taking that standard and that we are trying to assess basically, and sending our students out in the real world? How can we apply that out there? Where are they going to see those options? Another part is authentic audience. Students do more of a wonderful job when they know that their work is going to be shown to multiple people, and not just the teacher and not just their peers. It's out there for either the public, the smaller community, even just other students in the district. We want to make sure that whatever they are creating, they are sharing it publicly, but they're also making sure that it's something that is tied to who they are basically presenting for. So if they're doing a science experiment, what about all these scientists that are going to view this? Would a scientist want to see this? Would they be excited about what they created? Try to make those connections. And then of course, anything hands-on is always fabulous. Having that connection within there does allow for students to show what they know without having to make sure that it's something that they are just viewing and consuming and on repeat basically. So when we're talking about creating an authentic assessment, there are a few things that we want to keep in mind. First and foremost, think about what are you going to assess? What are your key standards? And now that we are kind of in this unknown environment for the fall, we don't know if we're going to be in class, we don't know if we're going to be hybrid, we don't know if we are going to be all virtual. Start thinking about what are your main important standards? What do you need to accomplish? And how can we make sure that we are going to address this? Okay, so always start with those main standards that you need. I always like to see, the RIC does put out like an assessment piece. So you could see like from state standards for like the 3rd grade testing, what areas your students or your grade level is kind of struggling with. So this way you know what areas you need to focus on moving forward. The second thing is, what do you need to teach prior to the assessment? So before we start building this, what are some key things that our students need to know in order to be successful? Think about what skills are you actually evaluating? What skills do they need to create the product? And I'm not talking about if we're doing something techie that they need to know how to create a site. They need to know how to add in a picture. Yes, those are all things, and we need to consider that, but really focus on the standard at hand versus the little things later on that your students are going to warm up to using. Okay, number 3, what format will you use? So what does this actually look like? Are they doing a presentation? Are they creating a blog? Are they creating something or a game in any sense? And how will you know that they have met your objectives? What are those key indicators that you know that they have achieved their goal? Number 4, how will you evaluate this? When it comes to authentic assessment, we're not just giving a standard grade. There's no multiple choice involved. We like to use rubrics or checklists so that we know students need to do X, Y, and Z, and they have a scale rating as to how it would look like or what it would look like. And then last but not least, what materials are you going to need? Are these things that they could do in their digital environment? Are these objects that you can use around the classroom or in their homes? What could we give our students access to? So I know sometimes we think about, okay, well, we have low-income families. Those are some things to think about when we're doing this. But what objects could they possibly use around their house to create or in your classroom to create? Okay, so my first tip that I want to give you for any sort of authentic assessment are digital portfolios. These are my absolute favorite because they can cover any grade level whatsoever. There are so many varieties of different ways in which you can assess a student, but seeing those checkpoints of work throughout the year, so like a writing prompt from the beginning of the year, middle of the year to the end of the year, showing that growth along the way and having it in a digital space so it's easy to access. Anyone could see depending upon how you would like to share that, but any sort of work that they start to build, they can put in this portfolio. And there's a few tools I'm going to recommend for this in order to use. So when we think about a digital portfolio, notice how we have all of these papers. Think about, what does this look like? We collect all of this, but it gets shoved into a filing cabinet somewhere. Sometimes it doesn't see daylight till the end of the year because we keep posting it in there. And then hopefully at the end of the year, we remember to give it to our students to take home, or we put it into a classroom application. But a student portfolio allows for us to move everything online. I think of it from a parent perspective. I have a child going into 3rd grade. The amount of papers she would come home, and she loved those papers. She couldn't live without those papers because they were all of her wonderful work, even if it was a simple worksheet or that beautiful art project that they created. It's a clutter. It becomes a huge clutter pile at my house. So what I started doing was digitizing them. I started putting all that stuff online because I don't need that physical product anymore. Sure, some of those pictures that she made, I'll put aside, But the little things that she really loved and enjoyed, I started adding and putting elsewhere. So for you as a teacher, start thinking about how can we reduce that clutter and possibly start adding those items online so that this way we can always go back and reference it and you can see it year after year and it's not hidden somewhere in a file cabinet or in a shoebox back at the house. Oops. Oops, sorry about that. So, purpose of your digital portfolios. There are some things that we need to be mindful of when we start trying to design what we want in them. First and foremost, a digital portfolio documents the learning. We get to see little individual snapshots throughout the year that they can post and add to it, and we get to see their progression as they move on. It's also visible thinking. Now that we have all this technology, students can add in photos, images, videos, videos, the whole 9 yards that they can put into this portfolio. So they have so many different ways for them to explain their thinking besides just writing something out or typing it up. There are definitely different ways to show. Metacognition. We need to have our students explain their thought process, how thinking about your thinking, what is really going on in their heads during this assignment. They can have a reflection piece built right in to their portfolio. And as we said before, this can definitely serve as an assessment. What standards and objectives are being addressed? How are they meeting those standards? Where is the proof that they are actually obtaining or learning these objectives? Global communication is key. I love it, as I mentioned before. They need to have some sort of authentic audience, whether they're sharing within their community, maybe with another classroom and you're kind of like pen pals in a way, or showcasing. You can have celebrity judges in a sense for some things, but showing that global communication and making sure that they know their work is going to be out there for others to see is always ideal. And then, of course, there are so many ways for you to incorporate parent communication by making some of these portfolios visible to maybe just the parents or available online, so it's kind of discreet. It's a great way for parents to see their students' progress throughout the way. Okay, so what we are going to do is, in the agenda that I shared with you, you will see that we have number 2, portfolio examples, okay? From here, there's a link to portfolio observations, and we are going to open that one up. And when you are there, I am going to put you into breakout rooms, and we're going to try this. We'll see if it works very properly. But you'll notice in our agenda here, I have several different links to different types of portfolios. I tried to put the grade level on there. I know I'm missing like 1st and 5th. I apologize. But any of these sites, you can kind of pay attention to the layout and what it looks like, okay? What I would like for you to focus on is you need to think about what attributes of the portfolios do you like? What are some things, if you are having students build their own portfolios, what are some of those items in each of those portfolios that you could see yourself using? Or what you really liked about it, but you're not quite sure if it would maybe meld with your grade level or subject area. I want you to start thinking about that. So what you'll notice is on our Jamboard here, I have 5 different groups. I am going to put you into 5 different groups, and with your group partner, you will add your little stickies based on your observations. So I'm gonna give you about 10 minutes to complete this. When I put you into breakout rooms, it will tell you what group you are in, so take note of that group. That way you can put it onto here. And then we will share out, okay? Any questions right now? Ashley, did you have a question? Are you good? Okay, Alrighty, let me break you guys out here. No, we're gonna do 4 rooms instead of 5, okay? So I have 4 rooms that you're each going to go to. And you are going to go. So you should be able to click join your room. Tammy and Alyssa, are you guys okay? Do you need help with anything? Okay, Tammy, so that's okay. It looked like you and Alyssa were in the same room. Okay, so the examples of the portfolios are in that agenda I sent out, and it's number 2, portfolio examples. So if you click on the link that I shared earlier, those are the examples. So Tammy, if you would like to go in and just view.
I went to the breakout room, but I don't see, it's all black. I'm confused.
Okay, so it's all black because you're all by yourself in that area. So it's just meant for you guys to talk, but you can stay here. Both of you are in this room, so feel free. I can help you out here. Take a look at the portfolio examples that we have there. So you should have clicked on the link in our agenda to each one of these. And then what you are going to do is go to that Jamboard, the portfolios observations here, and you are going to, you are in group 4, you are going to put on the group 4 tab here. So if I go down to group 4, you are going to add to here, okay? Okay, we should all be populating back in now. Thank you. Awesome. Alrighty. So we should all be back in our space. Can you hear me okay? Thumbs up, good? Awesome. Okay, so taking a look at some of those different portfolios, I love how we have, we've all added to our document, and if you couldn't get to that, that's fine. But I see a lot of the things that you are liking is that reflection component, the real life application, the website setup. Did anyone want to share anything that really stood out to them that they really loved about one of these portfolios?
I was really impressed with the pre-K portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
I've taught pre-K before, and it is a lot to collect all of their work and then at the end of the year organize it all, or to organize it throughout the year. So I like being able to push it out on there. And I think even just looking at the fine motor skills progress, like at the beginning of the year, end of the year, and then beginning of kindergarten, you know, it just shows so much progress that they've
Oh,
made.
definitely. I love how they have it set up by each area too. So reflections, their collaboration. My favorite component here, the rubric. Notice how we said that before. That is something that you may want to integrate on top of that. But as we have mentioned, our students, just basically collecting all of that work and putting it into one area is a godsend. It allows for us to have everything into one area, and we can add to it. Our students can even add to it. I know when we're looking at some of this, yeah, pre-K kid might not have been making the Google site, but I will tell you, as students begin to come on, they do love it. Once you show them how to do it and add, they are going to want to add continuously. But it also allows those students that are really tech savvy to kind of see what they can create and go crazy in a sense. So I also want to show on here with one of the other assessments is this kindergarten one. Like I said, even though it's by grade level, don't think it's just those grade levels. Think outside of the box a little bit, because a lot of this can be used accordingly. But what I love how this kindergarten teacher did was she used Google Slides. Google Slides is awesome for if you're trying to do something quick and easy with your students. So moving on into this, I want to kind of highlight two different things for you to use. We saw Google Sites, and a lot of these were the older versions of Google Sites, but now there's an updated one that you can use, and you can access it right directly from your Google Drive. But what Google just released in April is that you now have templates for slides. This was not available earlier. When they first launched it, there were no templates, but if you are looking for a student portfolio, a regular portfolio, or just some ideas and inspirations, if you just go to sites.google.com/new, you will see this. And to get to that, honestly, all you have to do is go to, and you'll see here's the student portfolio, but if I want to access this, if I just go to Google, oops, if I could type in Google, we're already there. Just go to Google, go to your waffle, and then scroll down to sites. And this will bring you to the old one, but if you noticed on the side here, it says new Google Sites on the left. This is where you're gonna find those templates. So if you wanna look there, start building something ahead of time, you can do so. And you'll be able to see all of your other ones as well. Unfortunately, right now we can't copy Google Sites just yet, but that feature is coming soon enough. But this is a great way to get your students going within here. So let me get back over to here. So with Google Sites, some things to consider. First and foremost, if you're already a G Suite school and using Google Docs with your students, Google Slides with your students, this allows for you to easily embed those items directly into that site. So that this way it's one less click. All the students have to do is bring it up, and it's super easy for them to access, as well as you. So if you start utilizing items, if you're pushing out things through Google Classroom with your students, such as an activity, you want to add it to their Google site yourself, you can do so. So let me just show you here. If I go into that site here, you'll see I can just click in the box, and on the right-hand side, if I go to the insert area, this is where I can add in all sorts of items. So if I have docs that I want to add in, it'll bring me right to my Google Docs so I can add them directly into my site. So if I want to add this in, insert, poof, it's there. It's fabulous. Now, the only thing that you have to think about when you're using this is that you need to change the share settings if you are making this public. If it's something between you and the student, that is fine. But you always want to make sure that you change the share settings of that document that you are putting in here. That's kind of the only downside of this, but all you have to do is go to the document that you're sharing, click share, and if you go to where it says get link, this is where you can change it, the view rights. So right now I have this available so anyone can view this. So those are some things to consider if you're using Google Sites and embedding Google Docs, slides, things along those natures. They have to be made available publicly in order for you to embed it in the Google site. I really wish that Google would make it so that the minute you put it in the site, it's automatically public, but that doesn't happen right now. So that's all right. But some other things about here is that with your Google Sites, this can follow them year after year. As they go up, they can make a page for kindergarten. They can make a page for first grade. Everything's all in one area. And now you as the teacher can see the previous year's progress. I will admit, depending upon the device that you are using, Google Sites works best on a computer or laptop. It does not work on a tablet. So if you have iPads in your classroom, just keep that in mind. You could still create like Google Docs, things like that, but the creation of your Google site, you're going to want to do on a computer or laptop. Now, a simplistic way is Google Slides. Google Slides is just, if you're looking for something very basic to get started with, get your feet wet. If Google Sites possibly intimidates you a little bit, think about doing Google Slides instead. What we can do here is just make a simple slide that the kids can fill in. But what it allows you to do is embed photos. You can add text. These are two things that you kind of want your students adding to here quite frequently. As well as Google Slides is device agnostic, meaning that we can use it on a laptop, on a Chromebook, we can do it on an iPad, we can do it on an Android tablet, on a phone. As long as you have the app on the mobile device, you can work with Google Slides. So just to show you kind of like a little setup here, I have my student's name for their portfolio. I could share this out through Classroom, make a copy for each student, and then previously have it built out. Start adding your slides ahead of time as to those key standards that you want to address and put them in here. So in this case, if I was doing 3D shapes, I would want my students to add in a photo, like they're finding a 3D shape and they're gonna add it in. With Google Slides, it's so easy for them to insert the images super quickly. So for as a kid, all they have to do is go to insert, and then they just select image, and you'll see here's the camera. So on your device, as long as you have a camera built in, they can take a photo real quickly and put it in, as well as access anything on their Google Drive. But we're trying to think of those little guys, where they need to have those simple, easy steps to use, and this is basic. It's getting them started. They're not only showing what they know, but they're working on their computer skills at the same time. They know how to insert a photo, and they're learning how to type. And honestly, I hear a lot of people say they're like, kindergarten, I don't know, with the typing. Okay, typing, yes, I agree. They're not going to be fluent typers, but that letter recognition on the keyboard is very helpful. Even if it's just 1 or 2 words that you want them to put in, that is great. But as we mentioned before, you can take a photo of their reflection and add it directly on here. So it's up to you as to how you'd like to use that. So some things as we are putting our portfolios together, this is an ideal time to have our students reflect upon their learning. What did they do well? What was difficult? How can they share their feelings? And I love, if you are doing the Google Slides and even the Google Sites, add emojis. Have the kids put an emoji for if they are excited about this, if they know this really well, maybe a smiley face, a thumbs up. If they're not understanding it, maybe put the face, you know? Add in that area for them to put items in. How did it make them feel? What new ideas did that give them? Those aha moments, capture it right then and there. How can I improve that for next time? And of course, how could I use this in the real world? What are some ways that we can do this? Okay, and have it so it's not just in our classroom. When we go home, we are making that connection when we go outside of the classroom. So I have a few other ideas I want to share with you. Some of these you may think are definitely for the upper elementary, which is fine, but a lot of these you can do as a whole group in a classroom too. So think about that. It could be a great collaborative project for you to kind of compile, have the students work individually, and then put it all together as one. So a few things that I like to take note of is that we do have the ability to just capture learning on the fly and to embed that in our digital portfolio. So you can see here, what exactly, can you guess what they're really learning about here based on those photos? They went around, they took pictures of it. What are they exactly learning? If you said perpendicular and parallel lines, you are correct. So I try to think about a picture is worth 1,000 words. Students can often draw a diagram rather than write a 1,000-word essay. So think about that in that case, is that sometimes we want our students to write things out, and of course in our very low elementary, you know, we have to build that stamina for the writing. But think about how a picture of their understanding completely shows that versus writing everything out. So capturing this, putting that in their portfolio. Same thing here. We can see our student here is counting by tens. They have that whole tens row filled in, okay? We know that he can skip count. Another easy way to assess your students, build collages. I love using this. If you are a tablet person, I love iPads. I will admit I'm an iPad junkie. Pick Collage is one of my favorites, and they even have a Pick Collage EDU. But it allows for you to create collages of different photos, and it's super easy for any student to use. And in this presentation, when I share it with you, you will have access to this. This wonderful Pinterest board has a ton of Pick Collage activities and things to think about with this. If you don't have an iPad, Google Drawings. Google Drawings is perfect. It's a quick, easy way for students to create. Kind of works like Pick Collage. You don't have all the bells and whistles, but that's what I like about it for little ones. It's plain and simple, easy to add. And here, the letter A, students found pictures. They did a quick little search. They could take a photo and add it in. But they teaches them how to search for an image and type it out and put it in. Okay, so quick and easy for them to put in and then add to their portfolio on top of it. So there are a few mapping activities. Google My Maps is awesome. Once again, we're sticking with that G suite of tools. But here, this is the story how to make an apple pie. So what this teacher did was had her students plot out all the different areas or places that were represented in the book. So the students had to come out and say, okay, we went to Italy. What was that they saw here? Semolina wheat bread. They went through and added this together as a class. So once again, jigsaw that out, have the students work on it individually. We can all come together. If you have those tech-savvy students, let them get started. But I will tell you, grades 2 and up can definitely handle My Maps. Biographies is another wonderful tool here. So like here we have Barack Obama's life. If students are reading about a biography, they can now go into those areas and add in the details about that person's life based on location. So kids love the Google My Maps. They get to see that overarching view of everything and adding in the simple locations. So Google Earth kind of goes along with My Maps, but on a whole new level, because we get the flying in, we get that bird's eye view, and there are called Google Earth projects. So this one's folktales around the world. So in this case, what they've done here is they put together different folktales from around the world, each of the locations. So let's see if it loads, but you'll have access to this. And students were able to add in details about each of these folktales. So they could fly around to the world, go to that area, and get an up close personal view of where the setting took place of that book. So what a great way for students to kind of see those locations we can access and be able to go there and pinpoint those settings of the stories. Key locations in history that we're learning about, maybe places around just our state that they don't have a chance to visit. But building these kind of projects is awesome. You'll see when you go to Google Earth now, because it's all on the web, you have this little hamburger up at the top, and then you have projects. That's where you can create your own. But if you're looking for some inspiration, there's this Voyager option here, and this kind of gives you some different ideas as to what to expect or what you could possibly create within your Google Earth projects. And I'm running out of time. I'm sorry, I tend to talk too much. Board games. Board games are another great way to have your students create something to show their understanding. Once again, depending upon your grade level, could be done as a whole group or individually, but having the students plan this out, put it together. There are wonderful digital ones. So if we are having our students, if we're meeting with them virtually, this could be an option. Slidesmania.com has a ton of different templates for you to use to create game boards. And this could be done right in Google Slides. So I want to highlight in the presentation, you'll have access to this, but there is a wonderful rubric that Read and Write and Think.org put together for how to grade a game board that your students create. Obviously, this is something that you can adjust accordingly, but it's completely up to you on here. But just kind of some nice guidelines to set forward. And then, of course, the templates. You saw the one from Slidesmania in the previous slide, but then also, I'm a huge fan of flippity.net if you haven't seen this, but they now have a board game template that you can use. So this is a wonderful idea to have the students create their games, put it in there, show their understanding as to what topic they are learning about. Another thing is Breakout EDU. Perfect way for your students to create their own or even participate. I love doing breakouts, whether it's virtually or in person, because it's a key indicator as to how students can work together. You get to see students' true colors when they participate in the game, as well as when they create a game and how relentless they are. And I'm gonna pick on Kristen for a second, but she had, when she was teaching 5th grade, she had students create breakout EDUs with her students. And it was a ton of fun to assess our students there. But in here, I do have a quick tutorial on how to create a breakout. So if you ever want to do that with your students, as well as in the agenda, there are links to some of Breakout EDU's free virtual breakouts. So, and last but not least, we had the rubric component. As I mentioned before, we want to have a way to communicate to our students what are our expectations, what are we looking for and searching for, and can exceed those expectations. And having a rubric in mind really helps. There are 2 that I will definitely recommend for you. Rubistar has been around for ages. They have wonderful templates already built in, so you can choose based on the subject area, on the content, the standard, and use what they have and adjust it to your level. Google Classroom rubrics. I love to use this because you can attach it directly to your assignment and you can adjust however you see fit. So if you're creating a rubric for one of your projects and a colleague wants to use it, you can share that rubric with them in order to use that activity. So with 1 minute to spare, I have to say thank you for joining. I hope you got some great ideas. And if there are any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free. I will stay on, share with the rest of us as to what's going on. But thank you.